All right, so we are starting to learn about volume. The first thing we want to do is let's remember about what we know about area. Now, area is the amount of space inside a two-dimensional shape. And it's two-dimensional because we can only see two of the components of that. So we've got our length and we've got our width. So when we're figuring out what the area is, we need to worry about the length of an object and the width of an object, and that gives us our area. And what I'd like you to notice is that when you write your units, it says units squared, there's a 2, and that's because there are two measurements that we are putting together to find out the total units. So length times width equals square units. We can see that here, square units, units squared. So now we're talking about volume. Now, volume is the amount of space inside a three-dimensional object, and it's measured in cubic units. So from the previous slide, we talked about area being 2 units, the length and the width. Now for volume, we're going to be looking at the length and the width, but also the height. So it is volume cubed, 3 of them. They're looking at length, width, and height. And if we're just given numbers to figure out the volume of something, we're going to multiply the length times the width times the height. So let's look at a couple examples. This is a two-dimensional figure, which means we're going to find out the area. And each one of these cubes is called a unit. Okay? And as we look at this row is the length, and this is the width. And you've seen this area before. We take, and we've seen it as arrays, we're going to take the number of cubes in our length, which we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to multiply it by how many there are in the width. So the width is this way, so we've got 1, 2. So we've got 2. So we've got 5 columns, and we've got 2 rows, and that should give us 10. And we're not just going to leave it at 10. We know that we have the width times the length, so we're looking at units squared. So we have 10 units squared. Here's another example where we're going to figure out the area. I'm going to figure out my length, and I'm going to abbreviate it with just an L. Maybe make my cursive there. And then I'm going to figure out my width. I'm going to abbreviate that with a W. And if I'm figuring my area, it's going to be length times width. And that gives me my area squared because I'm taking 2 measurements. So we've got the exponent of 2. So my length is 1, 2, 3 times my width, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And that gives me 12. And if I go in and I count my squares, we'll see that we have 12 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So length times width is just a formula that is kind of like a shortcut. So our final answer is going to be written as 12 units squared. All right, now we're going to jump to volume. And if you remember from earlier on, volume is actually 3 components. We've got our length, we've got our width, and then we add into it our height. And that gives our units cubed. Okay, so we're going to look at this, and I've got it kind of on an angle here. This is our length, okay? From here to here, that is our width. So our length is 2, our width is 3, and then we also have to take into consideration our height, which is 1, 2, 3 as well. So we've got length times width times height. Now we don't have to count all the blocks because, I mean, we can't see them all, but we do 2 times 3 is 6, and then 6 times 3 is 18. Now imagine that you've got your Legos or you've got your building blocks. If we saw that there's 3 in this row, and then right beside it there's 3 there, we know that this first layer has 6 in it. And because the green ones are right on top of the red ones, that also has 3 on this row and 3 on that row for another 6. And so we would say, keeping along with the same, that 3 on this row and 3 on this row is 6. And we can actually see the top of the blue row, so we can count that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6, 12, 18. And let's look at one more example of volume. We have our length here, which is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put my length here. Then we have our width, which is right here, and you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we look and we see our height is 1, 2, 3. So we have length of 3, width of 4, and height of 3. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 3 is 36. And this is 36 units cubed. So finally, here's your assignment. You're going to take a screenshot of this slide. You're going to find the area of the 2D figure, and you're going to find the volume of the 3D figure. All you have to do is do the work of our formula of length times width for the area and length times width times height for the volume, and write your final answer on the line, screenshot that, and submit it to the assignment. And you are all set. Good luck.